sitting on other chains, you're sitting in cash. Not financial advice, but if it was me, I would probably deploy some of that to Pulsechain, which can be done very easily using either the what we call the Richard Hart Bridge, available at pulsechain.com, which also has links to other things like Liberty Swap, where you can literally cross-chain swap right onto Pulsechain and buy many assets directly, not all assets, but many, including but not limited to Peacock, the Vault token, pdai, Pulse, Hex, whatever you're into. A lot of them are available direct swap from, I think it's 5 different chains: Arbitrum, Base, ETH, BNB. I'm probably Solana. You can do Solana directly to Pulse Chain now. With extremely low fees, and it's super fast. So, yeah, that's definitely an asset. But I think the other shoe for Pulse Chain is going to drop, guys. It's going to be, it's going to be the start of mass adoption of something that's been gate kept for years, and it will be fabulous.
That's good that, we feel confident about the product that's in front of us. I think in the discussion today, it's really a good talking point of just, seeing these tweets that Richard's putting out, talking about, just crypto kind of moving in a direction that's not what crypto was created for. People giving up custody of their assets and, wanting to earn APY, but giving up custody to do so, and it's just kind of against what crypto was made for. And then just, today we saw an example of what the issue is there, right? And then we can sit back seeing everything kind of burning down around us, but feel pretty confident in what we have as far as code, where we're able to earn an APY, which people want their value working for them. If you have a large amount of value in a system, you want that value to be working, and you want that value to be paying you. Either price appreciation is good enough usually, but price appreciation or an APY is also good as well. And it is what everyone really is looking for. Everyone wouldn't have a lot of their value in those systems, even though I know it's like loans and stuff like that. But they want to be earning value off of their value.
A lot about, specific to our age, specific to the chain, we talk a lot about just always seeing just forks of things coming online. Forks of Aave, forks of liquid loans, or liquidity, forks of this. When is new innovation coming that didn't come from anywhere else on Pulse Chain? Well,
exactly.
This is something that I think is
man.
needed, and if it can solve a problem of fiat on off ramp without an exchange, whew, I'm gonna tell you right now, bro. I'm gonna tell you right now. I don't give a damn if you're on AVAX, if you're on Solana, if you're on freaking Ethereum, if you're on BNB. If you have a legit protocol that can on and off ramp you without an exchange
and privacy,
everybody's coming to do that.
And it said, and I believe it offers privacy too.
I mean, you would have a lot of people coming to Pulse Chain, bridging into Pulse Chain just to off ramp from Pulse Chain.
Yeah, man. Can you describe, do you have your head wrapped around how it basically works? Can you describe that?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet. No. I have a guess, but I don't want to talk about that till kind of we get a little bit further down the road. But it's definitely privacy and escrow.
Yeah, I just typed in the 20 million in the Pulse Chain right now, and that's a 15x the Pulse Chain. We were kind of talking about that. Richard has spent a lot of effort making the supply of his assets very, very scarce. And if any remote amount of demand starts flowing into this chain, prices will start to go, and obviously green candles attract more green candles. This could be the demand side that we've been waiting for.
Exactly. So he buys a ton of Pulse to sacrifice for MrProve.
It doesn't even need to be him. It literally doesn't even need to be him.
Sure.
1,000 people brought in 2K each, in average. Some people probably bringing in 20K, some people bringing in 5K, some people bringing in $500. But on average, if 10,000 people brought in 2K each, keep in mind that's very, very minimal compared to Richard's other sacrifice sets. That's a fraction. That's the demand that we've been needing.
Yep.
Which it will be a fraction.
And keep in mind, there's been other sacrifices on Pulse Chain that have happened since Pulsechain's launch with projects, and the projects ended up failing, but they took in millions of dollars in no problem.
Yes.
This is like just in the last, I think, 6 months to a year. And these aren't Richard products. These are other people who have, held not maybe sacrifices, but, conversions and stuff like that. And those projects have easily taken in millions of dollars. Imagine if Richard started marketing and doing his thing. Like, I see no reason why tens of millions of dollars won't come to the chain specifically for those products. And the assets are so illiquid and so scarce, it just takes a trickle of demand into Pulsechain to make these things go.
It's like a loop, man.
Yeah.
Well, the website and the information that is given regarding the protocol will be interesting, because if it's high tier enough, you will have people 100% from outside of Pulsechain come in to speculate on it. There will be a percentage of those people that will do that. That's just a fact. But it depends on what it is, and if they view it as something legitimate that even as a non-Pulsechain blockchain user, they can use by bridging from ETH into Pulse and use it as an on and off ramp or an escrow service or whatever that they think will be safe, effective, and solve a problem for them. And it's at the end of the day, it's all about solving a problem for a customer. If we've got something on Pulsechain that solves that problem and it takes 5 minutes to bridge in, you'll see some people using it, and you'll see some funds coming from that.
On to the next subject. What do you think of the name?
The initial response in this industry personally, and I'm a brand guy, is I love it. And most people will have a visceral response and say, oh, that sounds corky, that sounds corny, that sounds whatever. But it's a product. You got to understand, it's not a decentralized DEX. It's not a blockchain. It's going to be a dApp. It's going to be an application. It's a product. It's a service. So you market it as a product or a service. And
I feel like the token name, though, is like that.
Prove?
I don't think the token is a product or a service. I agree that I don't really dislike the website or the protocol's name as much. It's just the product. I'll be honest here. It just doesn't sound like Richard named it. And someone threw in our chat, Dub, I think maybe was, if he wants to come up and say where he found that, he said something like that was an article written in 2015, which is 10 years ago, about a MrProve token or a MrProve situation that sounds oddly similar. Like someone started working on this idea, or maybe did finish the idea, but just didn't fully execute it well enough, and Richard's picking it up. Because the MrProve definitely sounds like 10 years ago. You have like Mr. Clean, and like a lot of people used to use Mr. this, Mr. that. But I think it's kind of fading out. But I did find that interesting that 10 years ago, there was a similar idea being talked about that also used this MrProve wordage. And I feel like there's some weird connection there, because MrProve, as far as the token name, doesn't match with anything Richard's talked about in the past as far as like branding of ticker symbols.
Yeah, I'll post the link for the article itself for you guys so you can look at it.
Well, neither did the launch of Pump.tires.
Neither did what?
The launch of Pump.tires
wasn't like Richard.
Literally so far from Richard that you would have never even dreamed in a million years.
Yeah, I agree with that. But the tickers that I think are like the ones he's not backing, but like most, I think, is like a ticker. Pump is like obviously a great ticker. The biggest pump, like Pump.fund, literally used that exact same ticker for their main token. Richard beat them to market with that like literally months prior. But yes, I do agree that was definitely odd as well. I just
that's why I say, Hayden, Zen, that's why I say it's different in the sense that this is a product. So I'm not going to consider Pulsechain a product, or the DEX a product, or Inc a product. This is an actual product that a customer will use. So in my opinion, it's named differently. It's named as a product. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I understand that. I just my like counter to it is the token isn't the product. The token is still a token that gets bought and burnt from the revenue generation of the product. And I just felt like it was a weird ticker symbol personally. That was it.
Well, we don't really know what the ticker symbol is.
That I agree with that. I almost felt like it was a placeholder.
Yeah, we really don't know what the ticker symbol is. The ticker symbol might be prove. We don't know. I just
exactly. That's kind of what I in my head I'm like, well, why wouldn't you just call it prove? Like, why did you have to add the Mister in front of it? It's just odd. But
that's the product. That's the product and service appeal. The the friendly Mr. Prove. You go use Mr. Prove over on Pulsechain and you're good. Like you said, Mr. Clean.
it reminded me so much of like marketing strategies 10 years ago, and I felt like it was so interesting when ODub found that article. I'm going to read it for sure because I'm just like, wow, 15 years ago like really is the right timeline from when people were calling a lot of businesses or products Mr. This or Mr. That. We don't need to hop over to ETH to then get to an exchange just to get fiat, or even to get someone in. We don't have to have him connect, KYC themselves to an exchange, then get into ETH and then get into Pulsechain. Like, we technically are just creating a great environment here on Pulsechain and then just building up the walls and saying, you know what, we're actually self-sustainable ourselves. We don't need to interact with these other things. And we can see how good that actually is by just what happened a few months ago with the massive liquidation that happened pretty much through every asset that's got leverage tied to them, and Pulsechain just sat there unaffected because there is no places to really do leverage on Pulsechain, so nothing got liquidated.
It was interesting that Tam brought out the T-share part, because I think the initial attraction to staking Hex is the CD aspect, right? Like the yield is promised to be higher than regular CDs. So it makes it a better investment. But I guess the T-shares that come after, it's kind of unclear to me what those really mean and what the benefit is, as well as if I stake my Hex, what is actually happening in the background in terms of cryptocurrency, right? Like, can I not move it from my wallet, or does it actually move to another wallet? So yeah, start there.
Fantastic. And I think you nailed it on the head, because the reality, and this is where I need to come in, is that a lot of those things are actually intertwined, because part of the reason why you're getting the yield is actually related to the T-share. Does that make sense? But to just minimize it, I just said T-shares yield, it wouldn't be doing its justice to really show what is it that it represents. And this is where I come in and with the analogy to make it make sense. But I'm glad to see that you already have a good basic understanding of the whole CD stuff. And I hope people in the call also so far have, which CD stands for certificate of deposit, aka long-term savings account, all those basic stuff, because that gives me a base to be able to start from. Does that make sense?
Sounds great.
All right, cool. So now, first of all, let's start with from the technicality, the technical term. Like you perfectly asked, what happens, quote unquote, when you stake your Hex, right? So the mechanics basically say, after you have bought the Hex, the action of you staking the Hex simply means that you're basically making a contract, an agreement with the smart contract, right? Because you put the amount and you put the duration. I'm willing to stake, quote unquote, this many coin for however many days, anywhere from 1 day to 5555. Why is that important? Because most people want to hear CD, they hear 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year. It's about, a few, maybe 4 or 5 options. That's it. No, with Hex staking, you have 5,554 options. Again, from 1 day all the way to 5555, which is about 15.2 years. So it's very, very flexible. You have that. Now, when that happens mechanically in the system takes your coin, burns them, and then gives you, in my analogy, first analogy I'm going to use for you to visualize, give you a receipt in the system, which is what we're going to be calling and explaining, which are the T-shares. In other words, when Hex started, you needed 10,000 Hex locked in order for you to get 1 T-shares. So in other words, for every 10,000 Hex that you're willing to lock away, aka burn, the system will give you one set known as T-shares. And then the global inflation, which is what pays the yield, the 3.69, there's a pool where every T-share is being put into. So your T-share will go into that pool. And then based on how much is being paid to the pool, you will receive that in terms of yield. So example, let's say in the 10,000 hex per T-share example that I use, you staked about a million hex. This is in as an example, right? So the easy math, right? Million divided by 10,000, boom, you get about basically 100 T shares. And let's say in the pool, there was already 1,000 T shares. So now you are 100 T share out of 1,000. So you are basically 10% of the pool. So if today we get paid inside the pool, which by the way, go.hex.com, it's a website. If you don't know that already, I would highly recommend you go there. Shows you the global payments every day live, how many, what's the payout to the pool, and based on that, it will dictate how many hexes you will receive that day because it's very dynamic. It's daily, very important. We just are really good at averaging yearly to show you what an API is, but technically it pays every single day and is dynamic because it's based on how many people are in the pool. So in this example, as I just explained, let's say if you're 10% of the pool, then you get 10% of the reward that day. And there's another metrics on go.hex.com that's really able to just tell you exactly how much is being paid to the global based on the T-share. So for example, if today there's about 2 hex paid per T-shares, all you have to do is if you know how many T-shares you have, and you know today we got paid 2 hex per T-share, then you can easily do the math. So if you have, in my example, if you have 100 T-shares and we get paid 2 hex per T-shares, that means you receive 200 hex. And the reason why it's very dynamic is because let's say tomorrow, same example, there is only 500 T-shares in the pool because the other 500 people left out. In other words, they did their time, the T-share got removed, and now instead of being 10%, you're basically about, double the amount because now you're 1/5 and then you will receive that accordingly. So that's how it's very important to understand the dynamic aspect of the T-share. So another analogy is imagine you walk into a restaurant and then you do coat check, right? You give your coat and then the person gives you a little receipt, right? A coat check. So that when you come back, what do? You give back the receipt, then they give back your coat. You follow me so far?
Yep.
So the T-share, another good analogy for village is like that receipt. For however many hex that you gave, the system did the calculation based on the hex per T-share, took the hex from you, burned it, and gave you a receipt in the system, which is your number of T-share. And from that day forward, every day your T-share is in the pool, and whatever is being paid to the pool, based on whoever is still in the pool, you will receive payment from. It's very, very important. That's why it's dynamic. Because also, next point, there are going to be days where, for example, somebody do what's called an emergency end state. Again, the system has a carrot, aka the yield, but it also has a stick. If you don't do what you said you're going to do in your emergency end state, half of that money gets thrown back into the pool, paid to those who do what they said they're going to do. So there's days where all of a sudden millions of hex are thrown into the pool extra because somebody emergency end stake lost coins and the coin got distributed to everybody else. So even though let's say you are averaging, 20% yield APR annual, right? But based on the daily payment, there's gonna be days where all of a sudden that one day the payment is as if you were receiving 50% APR if you're getting that same payment for the whole year because somebody emergency end stake and then a lot of penalties were added to the pool and all of a sudden you get a lot more hex. This is what I mean by it's very dynamic. It's not like, oh my God, it looks like I'm getting 20% or 10%. It's only 10%. No. If all of a sudden a lot of people emergency end stake, all of a sudden you get a lot more. Now, why is that important? Because recently everybody likes to talk about how, the OA stake a bunch of coins and blah, 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 and the staking reward went lower because the staking percentage went up a lot. That is true. But since that time, which has been over months, slowly but surely, the total hex and T-shirt in the pool has continuously been decreasing. So in other words, although we went all the way to, I think it was close to 95% plus of total stakes, since then, we're already back down to, let me tell you the exact number. I wish I could share screen here, but let me just pull it up here. We're back to 92.6% stake on Pulsechain and 92.25% on Ethereum. Now, why is that important? Going back to what I was saying, it's very dynamic. We were at 95%. We already lost 2% total stake in the pool, which is massive. Which means if people are end staking, that means the reward on the yield for those who stay in the pool is rising back up all over again. And I know that for a fact from not necessarily the OA, but a lot of other people who have had stakes from since the beginning, 2019. I just saw today and then yesterday some a massive stake ending. And again, shout out to those people. They did what they're supposed to do. They waited their 5 years. They got their, I saw like a 40 million hex stake ended today or yesterday, and then got about 52 million hex. I mean, it was paid over a 5-6 year stake. So now, when that person gets paid, they have two options: either go back into the pool or essentially cash out because they did their time, and then that's great. So one of the reasons why we are 92% and not 95% is because every single day, as end stakes are happening, people can either go back into the pool or just take their profit. If they take their profit, whoever stays in the pool, now yield goes up. So why is that important? Because once again, if today, let's say some people are not happy with their yield for whatever reason, but that doesn't mean tomorrow's yield is going to be the same, because if everybody else start leaving and you stay in the pool, then all of a sudden you're rising again.
Hey, I
It's
have
very,
fairly
very
good news.
important. Go ahead.
I hate to interrupt you. I have fairly good
Go
news.
ahead.
I just unstaked 2 stakes, and it didn't cost very much at all in Ethereum. Ethereum has come way down, way, way
There
down.
you go.
So
And that's the
unstake
beauty of the
now.
system.
Now
Uh-huh.
unstaking, which sometimes used to take $75 to unstake with, or
Mm-hmm.
more, depending on how big it was. When it was, I don't know, a year ago, it was expensive. Now, it's comparably.
That's awesome.
Yes, it
And you
is.
see, you're the perfect example. I am very genuinely saying this. I am very, very happy for you.
Very,
As
very.
of me, the reason why I like it is because the system is very fair and the system doing what he says he's going to do. The gentleman did his time, ended his stake, got his principal back plus his interest, and now he has a choice to make. Does he want to return into the pool or does he want to cash out? Either way, other participant, let's say myself, I am very happy either way, because should he go back into the pool, and so we're going to start talking about share rate and stuff like that. Should he go back into the pool, at best case scenario, I'm at the same position that I'm at before. I'm earning my yield because I got 15-year stakes. Should he not come back to the pool, I'm happy that he's able to cash out. And I am happy that now all of a sudden my yield goes up because he has removed T-shares from the pool. Therefore, more T-share gets removed into the pool, as I was explaining earlier, my T-shares start to generate more, right? And for those watching, I have hundreds of millions of hex. So it's like, again, but my choice was I wanted to be here for 15 years. So the system, both chains, by the way, Ethereum and Pulsechain, is working flawlessly, doing what it was supposed to do, and still dynamically making sure to reward the people who do what they said they're going to do, punish those who end early, and then continue to work day in and day out. So to recap, the good analogy to understand, first of all, what is a T-share and its relationship with the yield is the fact that you came in, you gave your T-shares, you gave your hex to the system. The system gave you T-share in return as a form of a receipt, again, the code check analogy, saying that I'm going to hold this for you. This is the receipt that you have this many in the system, which, by the way, is genius for multiple reasons. Number one, it's token burn, right? Which is good. Makes Hex market cap lower, so if the price pumps, it makes it even better. Number two, security. Hacker can see you well if they don't really understand how Hex works or whatever. They won't even know. They'll think you have no money in their account. When the reality is, obviously, you have plenty. But it's in that receipt, which only you can know because you have that with the contract. So it's genius in multiple level. And also, number three, related to the T-shares, it maintains what's called your share rate. And Kim, this is where I really want you to pay attention. This is very, very important, because a couple of new terminology you're going to hear from me is obviously share rate. And it's something that I literally coined myself. It's called T-share preservation. Very, very, very important term. Now, how do we get there? First of all, we need to understand what longer pays better is, and bonus. Now that we understand the basic term of like, hey, talking to the system, give my hex, get T-share, blah, blah, blah. Now, the system is saying to you, and Kim, if you don't mind, I'm going to use your name as an example. It says, Kim, if you're willing to stake longer, obviously you do whatever you want. But if you're willing to stake longer, just like kind of like a CD analogy, for every additional year you're willing to stake, I will give you an extra 20% more T shares. So 1 year, 20%, all the way to 10 years, which gives you the maximum of 200%. So if let's say you were staking for 1 year, you would have get, let's say in my example, the 100 T share that we talked about, versus staking for 10 years, and now you will be getting 300 T share. Now, why is that important? Because it gives you the ability to, if you are willing to delay gratification, again, totally up to you, personal choice. He's willing to give you, he, the system, a fair advantage because you are delaying gratification, right? AKA longer pays better, which now allows you to compound 3 times faster than the person that staked just for the 1 year. In other words, if somebody else and yourself were to have the same amount of hex to start, one stake for a year, the other one stake for 10 years, because of the 200% bonus, aka almost 3 times more t-shirts, what end up happening is you will be compounding on a daily basis because everything is paid daily, right? Especially on the first year, you will be getting 3 times the reward compared to somebody that only staked for that 1 year. That's the first advantage, aka longer pays better. The second advantage, which is called T-share preservation, which I've coined, is that after the 1 year is done, you still maintain your T-share plus the bonus T-share that I talked about in this example, the 300, for an additional 9 years, which is huge. While the other person, when the year ends, has to end the stake on the day he said he would. If not, after a 2 week grace period, will start to incur penalty. In other words, grace period, for to be fair and common sense, what if somebody's, I don't know, in trouble or couldn't access a computer or whatever. So you have a 2 weeks grace period. And then after that, the system is like, no, you're supposed to get out of the system and do what you said you're going to do. Because again, it's all part of the game theory. Because the system also wants to kick you out, because by kicking you out, it allows the people who are in to get more. Just like I was explaining earlier. Again, it's done by design. It is not a flaw. It is done by design because it's a test of truth and a test of trust. Do what you said you're going to do. Because some people have found out afterward, when they realize how valuable t-shirts are, that, oh, I made a mistake. Well, it's too late. You already staked. So you can't just hoard it and stay in there and be like, I'm going to stay longer. You get 2 weeks grace period. After that, every week that you stay when you're not supposed to because your time has passed, you will lose 2% of your back. Basically, by about a year, you lose the whole thing, which is the stake required to push you to end your stake. Now, when you end your stake, let's say that person after the 1 year, like I said earlier, like the coach analogy, the t-shirt that you had are not taken back from you, aka you go back to the counter and be like, hey, I would like my coat back. So you give back the receipt, right? You give back the t-shirt, and then the system calculate, all right, this was your principal, this is the interest you have accrued for that 1 year period. Here's your payment of interest plus principal. Thank you very much. Have a good day.